Alrighty, folks, what's going on? It is your long lost AWOL friendly neighborhood old soldier here to tell you the summer is over. The weather might disagree, but here in North Carolina, summer is technically over. Why? Because school started today in most of the counties. I'm not sure how most of y'all feel about that. I'm in a personal belief, nationwide, no child should have to go back to school until the day after, first official day after Labor Day. It's how it was when I was growing up until my high school years, and then we starting late August. But I think the nation needs to go back to a traditional school calendar. And some of y'all might disagree with me on that, and that's fine. I've had my kids go to traditional calendar and year-round calendar. I'm really of the opinion traditional calendar works better because children need a break. It makes for better planning for the families and households, I think. But, you know, I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. Certainly won't be the last. In more enlightening news, I was glad to see Robert Kennedy put his support behind Donald Trump. It sure as hell better than him putting it behind Kooky Kamala and her line, you know what. And of course, the lamestream media, you know, they're going to make up lies and tell stories and a whole host of other things to make this seem not as important as it is. Anywho, anyhow, anyway, it's for you, Brother Kyle, and your lovely new bride. But yeah, so the next few months until November, things are about to get intense with the lies, deceit, and the mudslinging. And I'm talking at all levels, not just the national. I'm talking about from the local to the state to the national. Okay. And see, right now everybody's cracking down on Tim Walz for bowing out right before his unit deployed in the position he held. I get it, and I'm not defending Tim Walz now, folks, but what I'll say is this: prior to that incident, he did serve. He served 20 some odd years. Mind you, it was National Guard, but you know what? During the war on terrorism, a lot of Guard units got called up more than 2 times to deploy, and they did. And again, I'm not defending Tim Walz's decision, but what I will tell you is my time in the regular Army, the full-time Army, I saw leaders do the same thing, and nobody's ever criticized them. And I'm not saying that Tim Walz is not a hero, or not, tongue-tied. I'm not saying Tim Walz is a hero. Looking at his awards and decorations they've posted, he was an average, ordinary soldier. About it. Now, how he got to be a master sergeant, he checked all the right boxes, got all the right schools. What I don't like is the fact he keeps touting on his resume that he was a command sergeant major. Let me clarify what that means. In the Army, the command sergeant major is a rank with a pay grade, E9. In the old Army, the position of sergeant major was that, a position. It was not necessarily a rank. It was usually held by the highest ranking non-commissioned officer in a battalion, a brigade, a regiment, a division. And then 1870s, 1860s, there was a rank, but the rank went with the position. If you left that unit to go to another, chances are you lost that position, therefore you lost that rank, you reverted back to the last highest rank held. There's a whole history behind this, what I'm getting at, folks. So he might have held the seat as a master sergeant, and he might have been what was called promotable, meaning he was eligible for promotion too, but had not yet, what we call nowadays, penning on. In other words, he hadn't officially put the rank on and been officially promoted pay grade wise. We call that frocking. In the U.S. Army, a master sergeant that's getting ready to become a first sergeant, a sergeant first class is getting ready to make master sergeant, but they're going to put him in a first sergeant slot, can be frocked to first sergeant, meaning his pay is still the pay of an E7, but knowing that he's going to get promoted, they're going to go ahead and let him put the insignia of grade on early until his promotion date comes around. And a lot of times, that's 1 or 2 months out. The same thing is applicable for a master sergeant that has been selected for sergeant major. And there's 2 types of sergeant majors in the Army. Bear with me. I'm headed down to the college to get ready for my week, picking up students. I had to get out here on the internet, or interstate. But there's 2 types of sergeant majors. There is just the rank of sergeant major, which some people still refer to as a staff sergeant major, because why? They work on staffs. They're either in a 3 shop or a 2 shop, or whatever the case may be. They're not in a command billet, meaning they're not the senior enlisted advisor to a commander, but they're the senior enlisted person over a particular department or grouping, if you will. Then there's the command sergeant major. That individual is the senior enlisted advisor to either a battalion commander, which is a lieutenant colonel billet, brigade or regiment, full colonel, and in some cases an independent regiment, it could be a brigadier general, division, corps, army, all the way up to sergeant major of the Army, which is its own rank, but it's basically the command sergeant major of the Army. We just call him the sergeant major of the Army. That individual is the senior enlisted advisor to the Chief of Staff of the United States Army. And what they do is, part of what they do is personnel administration. They advise the commander on who needs to go where, who needs to do what in the realm of enlisted affairs. But they're also the advocate for the enlisted soldiers to the command when there's issues such as, crappy barracks, which right now they seem to be failing on that because all the horror stories I'm hearing about barracks across the U.S. Mold, mildew, shoddy construction. 2 matters of pay and finance, time off, education and training, promotion. They advise the commander on all these things about everybody that's within their sphere or their command. The command sergeant major has a very important responsibility because not only is he advising the commander, he also has to mentor at the battalion level. He has to mentor to his platoon sergeants and his first sergeants. The first sergeant is a master sergeant in the position of first sergeant, who is the senior enlisted advisor to a company battery or troop commander. Okay, let me break it down this way. In the Army, you've got the non-commissioned officer corps. You've got corporals, the lowest ranking non-commissioned officer. Usually they're going to be a team leader, an ammunition team chief, whatever the case may be, depending on the type of organization. Then you got a sergeant. He's usually going to be an assistant squad leader. In the artillery, they'd be a gunner and an ammunition team chief. Staff sergeants, they're your squad leaders, your section leaders. Sergeants first class, they're the real last non-commissioned officer rank that serves with the troops where the rubber meets the road, and they usually hold platoon sergeant's position. but sergeant first classes, staff sergeants as well. Also periodically we do staff jobs. And what I mean staff jobs, in the military in the Army we have staffs. We got S1, personnel admin, S2, intelligence, S3, training and planning and operations, S4, supply and logistics. Some units have an S5. I'm not mistaken, it's civil affairs if my memory serves me correct. And then your S6, which is your communications. Okay? Then at the brigade level, it stays in the S. When you get to a general officer billet, it's G staff, general staff. Long story short, back to the whole thing culminating with, Mr. Waltz never was officially promoted to E9. Part of it was he did not meet the educational requirement to fulfill the billet. Had he stayed in and deployed to the unit, he probably would have, but he didn't. He got out. Because for each one of these ranks I was talking about, there's certain military educational requirements that they have to meet. Okay? Sometimes those are waived due to deployment restrictions and whatnot. Like when I made sergeant first class, for me to go to what we back then called ANOC, Advanced Non-Commissioned Officer Course, was waived because of the op tempo. And I never had the opportunity to attend when I got back. I knew I was going to retire, so why waste the effort? But it begins at what they call now the basic leader course. And that's young E4s that have been selected to promotion to sergeant, E5. Then you've got the basic leader course, young sergeants that have been selected to be promoted to staff sergeant. And then you've got the advanced leader course, these staff sergeants that have been selected to be promoted to sergeant first class. And then for master sergeants or sergeants first class that are promotable, they have to go to first sergeant school if they have been selected to become a first sergeant. Same thing as applicable once they make E9. And they have to attend the Sergeant's Major Academy at Fort Bliss, Texas. It's a 9 to 10 month resident course. When I mean resident, they have to move to Fort Bliss for a time and they attend classes. And it's a whole host of subjects they have to study, people. So next time you see somebody in an Army uniform that has 3 stripes on top and 3 rockers on their bottom and they got a star in the center or a star surrounded by a wreath in the center, know that they're a well-educated individual, because the Sergeant's Major Academy is not easy. So much so from its original inception to now, many of the candidates that go usually have a bachelor's, if not a master's degree when they get there. And I'm talking on the enlisted side of things. There used to be a time in the Army, it was unheard of for enlisted people to have anything above a basic high school education. But because of the scope and the magnitude of how the battlefield has changed, world politics, geopolitics, however you want to term it, it's highly encouraged for enlisted personnel to seek and obtain higher degrees of learning. When I was in, it was highly encouraged. It wasn't frowned upon if you didn't get one, but it certainly helped you along the way. That's one of the things I look back that I made a conscious decision to take that time and spend it more with my family, where I could have made that sacrifice when I retired and had my college degree. You live and you learn, but you make choices. But at the end of the day, back to the whole thing with Mr. Waltz, he argues that he had already made the decision that he was going to leave the service anyway to pursue his political career. There are people criticizing people in his unit that criticized him for leaving because they knew the unit was going to deploy. And long story short, none of us were there when that happened. What I'm getting at, optics can push a real messed up perspective. And again, I'm not saying the man's a hero. I'm not defending his service record. I'm not saying anything about him being anything stellar. If anything, I really despise the guy. Allowing tampons to be put in boys' bathrooms. It's disgusting. It's almost perverted. But I just kind of wanted to give you my opinion about the man's military record. Prior to all that, he had I'm not going to say a stellar record, but he had a record of, normal advancement, if you will. I wouldn't say that he was in the, top of his group of people, but you don't make master sergeant by being on the lowest part of your level. Now, yes, I know all of his service was in the Minnesota National Guard. I got that. But the National Guard is required to meet the same requirements as regular Army troops are for promotion, as far as education, things of that nature. So, anyway, that's my opinion on that matter. Either way it goes, Kooky Kamala is a fruitcake. She ought to be in jail, along with the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bidens. If Mr. Waltz continues to hang out with her, he probably needs to be there with her. And that's my 42 cents worth today, folks. I took the summer off. I needed to focus on my business, which J&L Shooting Academy is doing great and wonderful things. Business has really been on the uptake over the summer, so that's good. Now that school's back in session, go back to my part-time gig teaching at the local community college here. All as well can be. So I'll start trying to get some more videos out now that the school year's picked back up, and we'll talk to you later. It's your friendly lost AWOL old soldier out.